really stumped me the other day when you sent me that picture with adult depends. Adult diapers, essentially. From like you said, who would have thought I'd have adult diapers in my car? And I'm like, what is she talking about? Are those for you? Is that what you were getting at?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh
Yes, ma'am.
no.
I know,
Incontinence
right? We're
got you?
we're here. Yeah, welcome. So, here on the Lila's podcast, we believe in the importance of breaking down stigma and talking about things that mostly rely around closed doors. But we think that just keeps things behind closed doors, and I feel like there are probably many other mid-40 women that experience urinary incontinence, and I'm here to discuss this, how it changes you, maybe your relationships with your spouse, others, and my success in having to use occasionally, not every day, adult depends. So we'll segue into some other things, but here we are.
I am so proud of you for going so deep and really just putting it out there, guys. You're 43 and wearing diapers, and I'm sure there's some perks to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think that this is a more common problem than what people are willing to discuss. Hence why we just decide to talk about everything online and put it out there for the world to hear. Um, but it is pretty common for women, especially who have had vaginal births, to start to experience incontinence as they kind of go through like the whole perimenopausal um, time period within your life. And even for there to be like other changes, of course, that are happening in conjunction with that. And so with me, started getting like frequent UTIs, like every day. As soon as you get off the antibiotic, guess what? It's back again. Um, and with
Bless your
that,
heart.
uh, yes. I mean, this is where I'm thankful for the Depends. Because if you've ever had a urinary tract infection, you know you can go to the bathroom, completely empty out your bladder, but then feel that burning, that urgency. It's really,
Worst. I
really a
hate that
weird kind of
feeling.
pain. Yes, it's
Yeah, it
terrible.
is.
Um, oh, and so then you feel like you have to
Bless.
release more, but there's not much. It's like drips. And so that's where the adult diapers Depends become your friend and your asset. Maybe we're looking for sponsorship. Depends if you hear this. Huge fan. Um, but what no pun intended. What this helps with is just providing that confidence. It's just provides that confidence whenever I'm out running around. So one day I came home and it hit all at once. Like sometimes it does. And I had chores to do. And whenever you have a spastic kind of bladder along with it, you can't like hold it. Like it just, you're there, you're there, you're peeing your pants. Um, and so I had a towel in the car. And so I just sat on the towel. This is awful. Because I didn't have anything else and I'm out running around. So what do? I can't stop at every single gas station, even though I wanted to. And so I was like, this is too much. So I DoorDashed some adult Depends to the house and, put them on while I was symptomatic. I only wear them whenever I have those active symptoms, but it is so much relief. And I will tell you that I don't feel like I'm wearing a diaper. Like
That was my next
even though
question.
that's, yeah, technically that's what it is. It fits snug.
Mm.
And so,
Mm.
I went to Pilates and yoga with my diaper on. So I'm not going to let it interfere with my life or what I have
Look
going
at
on.
you. Yeah.
Well, you just can't. Whether that's whatever your medical condition is or whatever you got going on, don't let it interfere with your pathways to joy. Figure it
Yeah.
out. Get
I love
creative,
that,
problem
Sarah.
solve. Yeah, but just don't let it keep you from doing stuff. And
Whatever it takes, right?
but um with this too, I had to talk to my husband about it. God bless him. But he doesn't think they look bad. I mean, they're not like Victoria's Secret super sexy. You know what I mean? It
Sure.
still is what it is at the
Right.
end of the day. But it's not terrible, and I think
Right.
at the end of the day, yeah, he supports my health and wants me to be well and still active, and finding ways to do that is what's important. And I mean, if he had to wear an adult diaper, I wouldn't look down on him or feel like he was any less
No.
sexy or attractive or anything. we're coming to that age where we gotta have some level of acceptance with this stuff, right?
I mean, yeah, maybe this is just like a little warm up for you and for him to like practice for what the future holds. But I commend you nonetheless for being so open and honest about it. You're like, I had this problem and I'm not trying to like do this forever, but until we rectify this situation, like this is a temporary, helpful solution that's helping me still like engage and do the things I love in life. And I think that's the most important thing. And what a great, you and I both have, you have an 11-year-old, I have a 10, almost 11-year-old. And I don't know about you, but we have a lot of puberty talks in this house and not brought up by me. It's always brought up by my 10-year-old. And it's more like just questions, and they're good questions. Um, but what a great, I was thinking about this too the other day as our bodies are changing. And the great thing about our generation is we talk about this stuff almost in excess, right? Like our parents' generation didn't talk about anything, so we talk about everything. And and so what a great we're dealing with these things. Like you said, that's a perimenopause symptom, kind of like what you've been dealing with or can be, right? We're not medical professionals. We're not here to give medical advice, but yours could be related to perimenopause. Am I speaking correctly when I say that?
Yeah, yeah, that's what they
Yeah.
think,
So I
so
mean, like our bodies are changing, their bodies are changing. I just love like the opportunity that this brings and like how are we dealing with these changes in our body? And or any kind of like new sort of like developmental milestone that our kids are going through. Like, how are we helping them sort of approach these things and and feel a little bit more confident, right, as they enter into puberty? I love that my kid even asked me questions about it. Like, I don't ever remember asking my mom those kinds of questions. Maybe I did, but we weren't having. And I do try to keep it pretty short and like very biological, because he understands things that way.
I think that, as we all know, kids these days have so much access to things online that they are
Uh,
seeking out their own information and education through, YouTube or through
yeah,
TikTok even, or if they have access to a phone, they have access to the world and then all the information and misinformation that's out there. And we didn't have that growing up. So all of the information we got came from our sex ed talks whenever we were in school, or maybe from our parents or, an older sister, a cousin, somebody. And so I think
17
that
magazine, Cosmopolitan,
17,
I will say magazines were a huge source of information for us, were they not?
100%. Yeah, I looked forward to getting my 17 magazine every single month. But with that, I think that that opens the door for us and maybe even puts more responsibility on us as parents to have open discussions with our kids so that way they are not taking the gospel from online, and that they have that open door. So it is encouraging that, especially he is questioning and wants to know more. I mean, I see that as a major positive sign that he feels more comfortable going to his parents than, to an online source for information. There's different books or there's different, depending on a kid's age, ways that you can engage a conversation with them about keeping their body safe. And I think that's
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
And that's a whole other topic, but for us, it's just understanding that, you know, changes are likely to happen, and here's some ways to kind of like, come to us if you start to notice that they're happening. Like for girls at, 11 to 13, um, and I never thought about this. I am a girl, you know what I mean, by all rights and definitions of it, but I never thought about like bringing an extra pair of pants and clothes to school
uh
at that day because now you have to be worried that something that you can't control and that you can't expect is going to come and it's going to be embarrassing and require X, Y, and Z. There's a
yeah,
lot of trauma that can kind of come from we're basically
yes,
instilling that in there just out of like this thing, which is
yeah,
really, a different way of kind of thinking about it. And there is a difference in how you prep girls and how you prep boys. Like I never thought about that stuff because my son's 22 years old. I wasn't talking to him about this. Like, so many conversations that I've noticed that I almost, I feel I have a duty to talk about with her, but the fact that I didn't have to have him with my son because he's a boy is just it leaves a very, like, I guess, uncomfortable kinda feeling. It almost makes like, if I'm using words, it feels like it's unfair for me to have to tell her how to look out for herself if she's in a situation where I didn't have to tell him those things, but because of her
Right.
sex, I have to do that, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. It's a whole different set of rules, unfortunately. It comes down to just like, I think having the conversation in the least awkward way possible. Less is more, I find. The more I talk, the less my kids listen. The less I
right.
talk, the more they listen. I keep those conversations. The things I really want to stick, I try to keep those conversations shorter than any of them and really just choose my words wisely.
Well, their brains can't process it. I mean, we have all
Mm-mm.
we just wanna almost have, like, diarrhea of the mouth whenever things like that happen, but and they may be
We're
able
like,
to
let,
talk
let me
with us
impart
back
all
and
my
forth.
knowledge on you. Here, go, let me give you 43 years worth of
Yeah.
knowledge so that you don't have to go through this. They're like, womp, 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 womp. I've had my kid tell me I sound like that.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, so even if they're articulate, even if they're really bright kids, that does not mean that they have the cognitive and emotional processing of like a 40-some-year-old. So we can
Yeah,
get caught in that trap pretty easily.
for
But
sure.
I think it just comes down to just, again, having open conversations about things. And I think that's one thing that we try to do, not a lot within our family, but just again, it's something that's important. It probably just stems from us being diabetics in some ways because I may be asymptomatic that my blood sugar is dropping low and she may notice something. I might be here alone with her. How is she supposed to help out? And so,
Yeah,
we talk about medical conditions, we talk about body changes. And I think that now, even as us going through our own set of changes, it kind of parallels if you have a, pre-pubescent child on a different level, like the same level of changes that are happening with them are happening with us. And all of a sudden, it would be a good idea to like have kids later in life. I think it was a terrible idea because
I know,
now we're
right?
at this chasm.
Hormones just raging everywhere.
Hmm.
But I do like, I mean, I have said to my kids things like, well, like my hormones are changing, like my body is changing. And like we do talk about things again in a very like biological way. Um, and so I find it helps me to like kind of explain myself and my behavior sometimes. And but also like you said, like when he is asking questions about his body, like remember when I tell you my body has all these hormones and they're changing, like your body's doing the same thing. And he'll say, like, well, what's that gonna look like? Well, it's gonna look like this. You're gonna grow hair on your upper lip and, under your arms. And for whatever reason, that really freaks kids out. They're like, "Nah, no, I don't want hair, no." You know? And, I'm like, "Well, it is what it is." And then we talk about why. Well, why do you grow hair in those spots? Because it was for protection originally, right? And for warmth and to keep, like bacteria away and things like that. And so just again, I always try to go back to like a very like primitive, almost like caveman. Um, this is the way that we've sort of evolved and our bodies have evolved um and take the like weirdness away from it because it truly isn't like if you just explain things in like a matter of fact way. We've added so many layers of weirdness um that's like just not necessary. I don't know. Do you feel that way?
It's not. Yeah, I think that I don't know what the right word is again for it. I don't know if it's our own insecurities or our own feelings of awkwardness that kind of comes into play with it. But then
Mhm.
I think we're oftentimes the creators unintentionally of those awkward moments or situations. Um, and the stories that come from it. I mean, our kids can kind of sense it if we have that response to it, and it just perpetuates
Absolutely.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you've modeled that this is something to get like awkward around, and like that is a normal behavior. So I'd like to think that we're doing something good and keeping it very like open book. You can ask any questions, we'll give you the answers. This is what it is. And short and sweet. Move it along, unless they have more questions. But we let
Yes.
them lead for sure.
I just think if we can find helpful, encouraging, maybe even playful ways to talk about it with our kids, then it makes it easier and more of a comfortable process for them. So, you know, sometimes with Rachel, I'll be like, "Look, I'm going to need your help right now because I'm going to be a little testy because my body's going through changes just like how your body's going through changes. So I might be a little bit more snappy. I might be a little bit more disorganized or something, but I'm working on it. I'm aware of it and just give me some grace. And whenever you have one of those moments where you don't feel very good, where your head hurts or where you feel crampy or whatever it might be, if you are feeling a certain way and you feel like you need to have some grace, then I'm going to trust you that you're going to tell me that this is the time. Okay.
Hmm.
And we'll have like
Yeah.
a pact here. We're going to have a grace pact that we're going to do. And it just, I think it informs people of that, of what's going on. Again, kids have a way of internalizing things and not understanding the behavior. And we're not always talking about it. We're busy running around doing 8,000 other things. But I think by breaking that down, it really helps to kind of bridge more of a connection than a disconnect.
Yeah. I love that idea too. Of like just giving each other grace and being honest and open. Like, hey, I need it sometimes, and so will you. Also, just in thinking about like, life events, like my fifth grader will go to middle school next year. And so like that's a big change, right? And that's a sort of it's a decision you have to sort of decide. Are you going to go to your homeschool? Are you going to check out these other schools? Or try to get into a different school? And so I think in this process, what's been helpful is sort of modeling how do you make sort of these big life decisions, right? Just sort of like modeling how you do that, not doing it for them. I don't want to decide where he goes, but I want to model like what's the process of how you decide something that's, kind of important.
I mean, at the end of the day, the way I've always thought about children is that I'm raising a miniature adult. And so everything that applies to, again, at a developmental appropriate level, decision making, how to go about, making phone calls, setting things up, they're right there with me. If I'm setting up her dentist appointment, she's going to be sitting beside me while I make the appointment
Yeah.
and talk about the reasons why for the time and how to go about this. If we have to cancel it, she's going to be beside me, or at least I'm going to talk to her about the process. It sounds silly to do that little kind of micro stuff. But again, at the end of the day, I'm teaching them a life skill that they're going to need later on. And
Well, it's not like you're
that's
sitting down having a class. You're like, it kind of all happens sort of just like modeling naturally. I think about a lot of the things I do. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of doing it. Like you said, like making a doctor's appointment. Like I'll be like, gosh, I sounded just like my mom. Like that's exactly how my mom would do it. Or that's exactly how my mom says it. Or that whatever that is, like that was just modeled so much that that becomes how you do things. Right. If you're privy to seeing it happen, which obviously if it's being modeled for you, oftentimes you are there to see it. But yeah, like that's it. It's not you're like, I know it sounds, like a lot, but a lot of it's we do it without even knowing we're doing it. Like every time you do all those little things, you truly are teaching them this is how you do this. That's how we learn. The majority of what we, learn from our parents is just watching. Scary, right? Sometimes you're like, oof, don't get that one. Don't get that habit or don't do that like mom. Um, well, Happy New Year. I don't even know if we said that. It's officially 2026. Yeah, we'll be starting to de-thaw and come out of hibernation by the time that you hear this. And I'm sure we'll all have many of these same feelings on our mind as spring rolls around. That's, I think, all we got for this week. But be sure that you're checking us out on our social media at the Lilas Podcast. Check out our website. What else am I missing? YouTube.
Yep, YouTube, we're on there, we're on TikTok. Be sure to text the show. If you happen to be listening to us from Charlotte, North Carolina, we have been shocked whenever we've looked at our analytics to see that you are our number one city. So thank
Charlotte's
you.
in first place
Yeah.
currently. That shout out to the Queen City. So thanks to our listeners there. If you've got some topic ideas, guys, we're cranking out. We're in the 100s now, so we need some ideas. Send us our way. We've got some good guests on the horizon, and yeah, we would love a review so that we can keep this going and ad free. So go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to us, and leave us just a quick little review. Tell us what you think. We'd love to hear from you. Um, that's all I got, y'all. Until next week, Lilas.